We are in Perakim, Parak Beis, and this Perakim, as I explained, Perakim, Perakim Parak Beis. What we were talking about was the Perakim, which is, according to most of those that are Mefarish the Nefesh Hachaim, a section in which he, without saying so, actually discusses the Hasidim. Actually discussing the Hasidim. He doesn't say a word about the Hasidim, but that's the Messiah that he's discussing the Hasidim. And to do so, he starts off by talking about what does anivos mean and what does gaiva mean. Remember that the whole end of Parak Shlishi is talking about how tefillah, for instance, tefillah, and then he said also, he's talking there, V'gam Torah has to be completely lishma in the sense, like Moshe Rabbeinu was v'nachnu ma. So what it means, I'm just going to be makatzer a whole shar gimel. It means that I'm standing in front of Hashem. I'm not standing in front of Hashem saying, certainly not saying, give me parnasa, give me osher v'kavod, give me good health. What I am saying is, Hashem, if you want me to do your ratzon, I need good health. I need parnasa. I need the situation to be plausible and pleasant. I just so it's a knech, you know. It's just a knech, but it's a knech in the whole gishat tefillah. And when the difference between Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, said the Nefesh Hachaim, where they said Vanoichi offer ve'efer, I'm kimat nothing. That was different than Moshe Rabbeinu saying Vanachnu ma, that I'm nothing. So it doesn't mean that Moshe Rabbeinu davened for less than Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu also said Beged Lil Boish, Lechem Lechol, Shmarani Baderech. He also talked about that, and so did Moshe Rabbeinu talk about that, even in a bigger way, even in a bigger way. But it was always his accompaniment. It was never for himself. So it's a very, very dakas deher between gaiva and anivos. So if a person is working to be, and here comes the big chiddush in Parak Aleph of Perakim, person's working to become a tzaddik. So on the one hand, like what's better, we all want to be tzaddikim. It's a hard job to be a tzaddik. But you see, in that in itself, a tzaddik has a zich. And a tzaddik is building up my midas hayisoid, tzaddik yisoid olam. Yisoid is there. It's so that gufa is a form of gaiva, not too bad. That's like the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Yosef, tzaddik yisoid olam. Yosef a tzaddik. But you see, with Yosef came along with it, if I'm permitted to say, also a certain sense of self, which doesn't feel right. Misalsel, B'sa'aroi. There was a certain sense of self which gave him Yisoid Malchus, brought him from Yisoid to Malchus, but he was a tzaddik. But a tzaddik, says the Nefesh Hachaim, is unto itself, what's usually referred to as a tzaddik, is not the ultimate madrega. The ultimate madrega is to disappear. So it's a very difficult, and if not, so then you're not the unav like Moshe Rabbeinu.
Don't we say ad matai tagia
a
voice? We don't say to Moshe.
Okay. So he says that but there is an aspect. That's a good point. But there's an aspect of there's an aspect of gaiva there, which is a lack of bittul. There's a lack of total bittul. So you're right. Is that good enough? Okay, it's good enough. But understand that that's not. Gaiva is in the point that we have something to us. I'm not completely transparent.
That's the whole test of other relations. You battle himself.
Yeah. So we actually spoke about that last week. What it comes down to is Adam Arishon was Hashem is here. I could be here too. That was the Hasasas HaNachash. The whole inyan of the Nachash was you could be Kehillat. So not serve Hashem, but be a power in this world.
Is that Atzmius in Yaakov could that be connected to his vulnerability to the Malach that he's talking about?
I think that was the issue with the Malach. I think that was the fight with the Malach. But I want to say that the reason why it's true, but I think what the Nefesh Hachaim goes out to say is that you see some pretty serious problems with it, because once I'm the tzaddik, then I have this not problem, but all of a sudden people are asking me for brachos. So perhaps you should say, I just heard Reb David Soloveitchik Shlita is in the hospital. He's very, very ill, the Reshiva Brisk. But so but his mind is working very well. But he's 98 years old. He's struggling. But somebody said that when they came into the hospital, they told the doctors, the nurses, whoever it was, they said, "Tzaddik gadol, tzaddik gadol," which he is, by the way. So he looked up for the wheelchair. He said, "Mach nish choizik." What are you making me into a tzaddik when I'm, the Reshiva Brisk? So problems come from that. So understand the sociologically coming off the Shapsai Tzvi movement, getting into like this Indian of a tzaddik. It's hard to argue with, but he's taking it on. It's hard to argue with. It's a good thing to be a tzaddik. But he's saying that it has to be a tzaddik without gaiva. Then Perak Beis, he says, here's another type of gaiva. Remember, by the way, at Perak Aleph, I pointed out, he says two things, like hazuach daitcha alecha v'tisnase levavcha. Arrogance and, what was the second one? He said another one.
Haughtiness.
Haughtiness. I'm not sure which is which. In fact, I don't even know what those two words mean. But arrogance seems to me to be towards other people. Correct?
When you arrogate something to yourself, means you're taking something which doesn't belong to you.
Is that correct?
Arrogate is...
You're a bucky. Not an arrogating in language. So here he talks about what seems to be the first one was shalai tazuach daitcha, don't get full of yourself. What he said at the beginning, v'tisnase levavcha, and here in Perak Beis, gam tuchal igram la'adam hisnasus balev. It's mashma that he's going on the second problem. Hisnasus balev, a certain arrogance, or is there a better word for somebody who looks down and patronizes other people?
Supercilious.
Gam tuchal igram. Like what I'm saying is that when you're patronizing, it's a very, very subtle form of arrogance. In a way, you're being very nice to the person. Let me help you. But it's a very, very subtle form of arrogance.
It's condescending.
It's condescending.
Benign disdain is how I heard it described. Benign disdain.
How you heard what described?
That kind of arrogance. You're nice to people, but you really...
Right. You see, there's also, we can examine this because there's also what I've heard referred to as inverted snobbery. Meaning, let's say you're a big Rav and everybody walks in when you walk into the room, so you don't, no, sit. So that's a sort of a, that's a sort of a gaiva unto itself, no?
Falsha, no.
It's
It's like a no-win situation.
You know what? You see the real Gedolim, they don't even notice. They pay attention. They don't say stand up, they don't say sit down.
That's an
they're
Navardic
gone.
joke.
Huh?
That's an Navardic joke.
Yep. You see it a lot. I don't have the Nisayan so much. That's it. Perak Beis, Gam tuchal ligroim la'adam ha'isnasus balev. You can get to hisnasus balev. What does that mean? Masher hu oived oisa yisbarach b'taras halev. I'm, let's say, worshiping Hashem with taras halev. Taras halev. Complete purity. Sheyekel be'enav. Now it's possible that I'm looking down. Chas v'sholom. Im yira mi v'mi she'einin yanei avodas elo yisbarach v'machshava tahira. I look with I look down, it could be that I'm such a tzaddik, second level of arrogance. I'm such a tzaddik that I look down on people that are not tzaddikim. He's not really davening correctly. He's not really learning correctly. He doesn't have the right kavanas. So sometimes the tahara can bring you to gaiva. Not because I'm a tzaddik, but because you start looking at other people. This is a tzaddik, you could be in the woods someplace. A tzaddik, it's what you think of yourself. But this can affect, he says, other people in the sense that, once you feel like I've got it, like I really understand davening, so now I can look at other people that, they're davening, but they don't really get it. I think that if you learn a good chapter of Nefesh Hachaim, or a good chapter of Tanya, or whatever it is you learn, and you daven with a whole new understanding, and you look around at everybody and say, Chabal, they don't have this understanding.
Okay, that's a different.
That's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about.
But I'm saying like a negative way, so that's already.
Yeah, not like, yeah.
They train
You,
therapists to empathize, not sympathize, because sympathy is condescending.
sympathy is condescending. I believe, by the way, and I want to be careful here, but I believe that what he's talking about now is actually the first time in the whole sefer that I've ever seen that the Nefesh Hachaim goes on defense. Let me say it in my words, and you'll tell me if I'm right. Why are you looking at us? Let's talk about Volozhin or Yeshiva. Why are you looking at us like we don't really get it? We don't really do the avodah properly, not really learning Torah Lishma. Because we're not. You see, in Ad Hayom Hazeh, Hasidic yeshivas, so Bachrim sit in yeshiva and learn with a rekel, with a gartel, with a hat. Avodah Torah, avodah. It's an avodah. Ad Hayom Hazeh, most Hasidic Bachrim wouldn't think of learning Torah without going to the mikveh first. It's lo ba b'cheshbon. Where if you walk into, let's say, a Hebron yeshiva or Slobodka yeshiva in Europe, there was no hat and jacket and gartel and mikveh. Mikveh was for women, by the way, except for on the only time they opened the mikveh in Slobodka, I heard, was on Erev Yom Kippur. Well, the only time they opened it for men. So there's this tendency, there could be a tendency, for a person who's doing all of the hachanas and the religious parts of learning to look down on the person who's just learning. Now, you can say that right, well, you could say that it's Mizrach Lamar of the two things. It's not one does hachanas, one doesn't do hachanas. One is looking at Torah as a derech of avodas Hashem. And one's learning Torah is, of course, I'm doing this because Hashem wants me to do it, but it's a derech of Havana, it's an intellectual pursuit. Not that it's Keneged Hashem or something like that. Of course it's Lishma. But my general attitude is, why would we be doing this if it wasn't Lishma? But the pursuit is a pursuit of intellectual pursuit. So the truth is, I may say, having learned in both worlds, from Hasidic yeshivas to Brisk, there's actually disdain on both parts out of Yom Hazeh. Because on the one hand, you can see what he's talking about, that there's a look, you walk into, and I've heard it, out of Yom Hazeh, I've heard it, you walk into a good, strong Litvish yeshiva and say, what are they doing? Like, it's not, like, where's the Avodas Hashem here? Where's the religiosity of what's going on here? They're learning Torah. But on the other hand, you can walk into the a Hasidic yeshiva and say, where's the Torah? Like, okay, they're being very religious, but so the truth is they're both not true, but that's because there's been a big merge of Hasidim and Misnagdim, but there's a danger to both of them. there's a big danger to both of them. You know how many famous stories or infamous stories of Nefesh Hachaim that would learn with the Gemara and smoke a cigarette on Shabbos. It was, in other words, you can get carried away with that derech, and you can get carried away with the other derech also, which is like it's all about avodas Hashem and davening to Hashem that I get shot, that you're not really learning in the right way. But there's two sakanas. But what he's saying is, I'm adding on to him, saying nobody should be arrogant. But what he's saying is that, okay, you've taken a derech of avodas Hashem. Let's say he's talking to the Baal Shem Tov. You've taken a derech of avodas Hashem, which is extremely noble, but don't look down on people that haven't taken that derech because they're not as lishman. Listen to what he says.
Wasn't that exactly what the Baal Shem Tov was doing? He was trying to break down, I think, what people were looking down on, the illiterate and the ignorant.
Yeah, it's a oxymoron.
It's like a tochel kabara kind of thing.
But don't forget that, he was breaking it down, but he wasn't breaking it down with learning. He was breaking it down with, avodas Hashem. Everybody can be an avodah Hashem. Toichei kabari. I don't think it is about toichei kabari. I think it's whether my attitude towards, let's talk about learning Torah, is a religious attitude, or is it I'm supposed to learn Torah, like I'm supposed to understand this, I'm supposed to deepen, and it's almost like religion is mafriya the Torah, in the sense that like you don't daven for good shots, you rack your brains. It's not about like you don't go to the mikveh to understand things, mikveh is bittul Torah. Get up earlier and scream at somebody, So, but look what he says.
Where was the Rabbi Salanter now? It sounded like he had a middle approach a little bit. No, that learning triangles to the talis to the Kodesh Baruch Hu, like there had to be a connection to. It wasn't just intellectual. It wasn't Hasidish. It was something.
Look, he was super litvak. I don't know about the Shnaim or some talis, but I would venture to say that the Litvish world went so to an extreme in this, especially after the Hasidim came around, like such to an extreme that it started to affect midos. In other words, who was really arrogant to say it started to create a certain elitism, because if I take a kid into my yeshiva, am I looking at how devout he is, or am I looking at how smart he is? And is his devotion even a chasarn? What's that what I'm looking for? So it becomes a very fascinating taitzah, which is all ipcha mistavra. And I think Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was saying, cool guys, what about mitos tovos? And spoke about Mesilas Yesharim and but it's a very interesting question. But what I'm saying is, you see, to me, ani hakatan, I think we're living at a time and in a place where we can absorb and integrate all the different mahalchim. That's what I. Yeah, both. I think it's. I think it can be over. I think there's so many. There's so much to be learned. We call Hatzadim without having to become it.
It's concerned not becoming something also.
It's harder. It's more difficult. I don't know that there's any Torah. Again, I'm getting off topic. Not really off topic, but out of text. I don't know that there's any. I'm talking about serious. I'm not talking about people that are flamboyant. Any serious frum discipline, let's say here in Eretz Yisrael, where everything seems to be very extreme, that you can't integrate into your life. Whether it's more Torah, whether it's more learning, whether it's more Avas Eretz Yisrael. Once you join it, then somehow you're sacrificing the other one. Like Avas Eretz Yisrael, and that's like such a So it doesn't mean that I don't think it means necessarily here before we start Shiur we should all sing Hatikva, but Avas Eretz Yisrael and appreciate Eretz Yisrael. And it's passion, but in other words, you can't sing all day. That's not Avodas Hashem. But isn't it helpful? Don't we have some hisaris if we sing during davening? Rabbi Tursky told me last year that he was when he was in Lakewood. So he's a Hasidic, obviously a Hasidic guy, a rabbi. So he told me when he was in Lakewood, so Rabarn was there at the time. So Rabarn Zatzal used to call in Bachrim to his Shabbos table to sing Zmiris. Rabarn wasn't a singer, but he loved Zmiris. And when he told me when Shlomo Carlebach left the yeshiva, so Reb Michal became the Gadol in Zmiris. That's the voice, the guy. That's what he told me. So in other words, Rabar liked Carlebach because it was about Menagin, and he created a certain ruach, obviously. Reb Schneer's Reb Schneer's Sheva Brachas. Rabarn invited Shlomo Carlebach, and the whole oilam that came was Lakewood guys. They sat on the floor with Shlomo Carlebach singing Dagunim with Rabarn. Okay, so that's a picture we don't usually have. But anyways, Reb Michal says that he was invited. He became like the one with the voice. So he was the Zviris. It was beautiful. He came to Rabarn's house, small thing, and one Shabbos he had as a guest Rav Mendel Zaks, the son-in-law of the Chafetz Chaim. He's a real Litva. I met him. So Mendel Zaks lives in Mattersdorf for Sofiam. So he's sitting there with Rabarn Kotler and another Bacher and Michal Tversky, and Rabarn says, "Zing Zmiris." So they started to sing Zmiris, and Rav Zaks was getting more and more nervous about this matzav of singing Zmiris at a Shabbos table. So he said to Rabarn, he said, by the Shver, by my father-in-law, the Chafetz Chaim, haben das nicht getan. We never sang Zmiris. So Rabarn told him that that's because our Shver nicht gekannt singen. Okay, so here you have a machlekes two gedolim. Not whether the Chafetz Chaim had a voice or not, but like what is the right gisha? But one thing is for sure to me that if it's integrated with balance, I think that's what the gedolim are saying. I think that's the new trend. It's the correct trend to let's try to bring it all together. Used to go to Rav Moshe Shapiro of Hashem. Used to go to Shiurim. It was extreme. The only thing I was devout, but what it reminded me of, I went to many people's Shiurim and many people's. I went to Rav Olba Shiur, went to Rav Chaim Volozhin Shiur, went to Rav Scheidberg Shiur, went to many Shiur. The one he reminded me of was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Just very, very similar, sort of a Litvische derech and Chassidus. Kabbalah and Machshava, they called the Machshava, gave it a new name, but it was all exactly the same, almost exactly. I mean, it was so dachistic that it was hard to tell the difference. He was certainly no chassid, but it's a also a lot of Rav Kook, and he was certainly not a Kooknik. So it's so interesting how it has to be integrated. Okay, let's go further. I said enough. I'm wondering these days if I'm hoping that the tape comes out or I'm hoping the tape doesn't come out. So we've been having a problem here. Kol sheken kishiyurei zeish oisek b'Torah Hashem, to look at another Jew and seeing that he's oisek b'Torah Hashem, v'yispainen alav shehu loy lishma, and to think about him, wow, he's learning, but he's not learning lishma. Yisbaze be'ena moed chas v'shalom v'hu avoin plili harachamon yatzilenu. Terrible sin. So again, he's talking about the arrogance of those that have tahara and kedusha and are looking at the people that are just learning. Ki be'emes kol inyan hataharas halev ba'avodas yisbarach hula mitzvah. It's true that one should have taharas halev when they do a mitzvah that's a mitzvah. When they do learn Torah, and that's a mitzvah. V'loy kuva. It's not ma'akiv. Kamosha kasavti, right? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn Torah if you don't have that Torah. Kamosha kasavti le'el seif shar aleph. I will speak more about this. If I am keeping the mitzvahs according to everything that the Torah says, Torah Shebiksav, Torah Shebal Peh, it is not with a serious relationship with Hashem. I'm doing the mitzvahs. I'm putting on tefillin. I'm learning Torah. I'm doing everything. Nikra gamkein oved elikim. That's also called an oved elikim va'ahuv lefanav yisbarach, and God loves you. V'chein ha'adam oisek b'Torah Hashem afilu shalei l'shma. And if a person learns Torah shalei l'shma, im ki vadai shadayin einoi b'madrega gavaya amitis. Even if you're not on the highest madrega, amnam chalila v'chalila levazoisai afilu balev. And here's why I say that this is the first time I saw in the sefer that the Nefesh Hachaim goes on the defensive. Chalila chalila levazoisai afilu balev. Adrabah, kol ish Yisrael mechuyev gam linhag by kavod. Mashikasa b'sma'ila oisher v'chavod. V'darsha Rabbi Seinu zichronim levracha l'masmi'ilim ba. Just review the Gemara. The Gemara says that there's a pasuk of Orech Yamim b'Yamina, Oisher v'Chavod b'Smoila. So the pasuk talks about, Shlomo HaMelech talks about right wingers and left wingers. So the right wing is Orech Yamim b'Yamina, B'nei Olam Haba. The small is Osher v'Chavod. They're doing it for Osher v'Chavod. So, as much as the Gemara Shabbos says that it's not just b'yaminoi u'b'smoila of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there's miyamnim ba, masmi'ilim ba. There's people that use the Torah for yamin, and there's people that use the Torah for small. I don't know how it relates to the political stage of right wing and left wing, but the Torah gives it Shlomo HaMelech gives a bracha l'masmi'ilim ba to those that are doing it for Osher v'Chavod, and they will be zocheh to Olam Hazeh because of it. Ubazayir vayeshev, the Zayir says as follows. In case you're wondering if I am Kabbalistically inclined, says here's the Zayir and Vayeshev Torah Hashem Tamima. Kama Islain Lebnei Nosha Lishtadola by Raisa. How much does a person have to learn Torah? The Chomandi Shtadol by Raisa Lavi Lechayim. Because anybody who learns Torah will have life. Afilumandi Shtadol by Raisa Shtadol by Lishma. And even if you're learning Torah but you're not on 100% level of Lishma, Kidakayos, because he has some gaiva there, I'm good. Zachi La'agar Toy Ba'almadain, he'll get tremendous schar. Good schar. In this world, loy dainina le bahu alma. Loy dainina le bahu alma. What does that mean? We won't judge him in this world.
So what is that? So okay.
It's okay. No, but we don't know from there that there's any mila in shalei lishma at all. Except that you should do things shalei lishma because you'll get to the real place, which is lishma. In other words, that Gemara to me tells me there's no value in shalei lishma, but do it anyway because we talk shalei lishma, ba lishma. That's the pshat in the Gemara. It's not that shalei lishma has any virtue at all. But here the Zohar is saying that even if a person is learning shalei lishma, zachi la'agar tav, for that in itself, he's zocha to agar tav ba'alma dain v'loy dainina le ba'hu alma, which needs a hesper.
That makes sense. You get credit for the act, even if you don't get credit for the kavanah.
Loy dainina. So what's the translation? Loy dainina le ba'hu alma. We're not
judge him.
Right in this world.
Everybody who comes out with a bonum gets a candy bar. I mean, that's
What is it?
that's a candy bar.
This world it says?
Bahahu. Oh, loy dainina le ba'hu alma in that world.
That's the next one.
Next one.
What does it mean? Lo daininu levahu alma.
You're not being critical with your action.
Alma Day is not Alma. He talks about.
It's not a
Correct, I'm sorry. My
Okay,
mistake.
but what does the guy talk about Alma Day? There's no schar for mitzvahs. What's he talking about?
There's benefits. There's his benefits. Orich yamin biyamina, oisher v'chaved b'smayla. Tochazeh, which is the Zohar equivalent of Toshma. Ksiv orich yamin biyamina b'smayla oisher v'chaved b'smayla oisher v'chaved. Agar toiv v'shalva islay b'hayalma. He'll get good schar in this world.
For Lo Lishma. For Lishma.
Yeah.
How about for Lishma? He gets no schar in this world because it all goes to.
You gotta hope there's a little shillelagh. I think let me just understand it for a second. In other words, everything we do, let's say you do a mitzvah. So there's Reb Chaim was alluding to this. There's the mitzvah of the mitzvah, and then there's the machshav of the mitzvah. So let's say my mitzvah is correct. I'm putting on beautiful tefillin. I'm putting them on properly. My machshav is I'm putting on tefillin because everybody's putting on tefillin. I'm putting on tefillin. In other words, I'm not particularly shema. I want to fit in whatever my shillelagh shema would be about putting on tefillin. Or I have nice tefillin, I want to show them off. So what happens is you're getting schar for the maisa. For the machshava, you didn't do any good machshava, so why should you get schar for the machshava? I mean, you would get schar for the machshava, but there's no machshava there. Machshava is the wrong machshava. Now, what's the chiddush here is, to me, with Torah, because Torah is all in the machshava. So Torah shaloi lishma. You see, I understand. Like you give tzedakah, even if you don't know you gave it, somebody picked up the dollar, you get some schar for that, because ufketan, you help the poor person, you have a schus. But Torah is kulei b'machshava. So if kulei b'machshava, and my machshava shaloi lishma, so what am I doing? What's left? In other words, when you could divide a maisa with a machshava, so then, okay, maisa is good, machshava is not so good.
Because the action is done. Why not?
What was the action? It's all machshava. I'm just thinking and learning.
The act of learning.
So let's touch it up. So what you have to say, I mean, clearly, but what you have to say, the what? So you have, right? No, but you have to say that in machshavas. Okay, so I just want to speak it out. In machshavas haTorah, you have two halakim. You have the maisa of the kavanas alimud, and then you have the limud gufa. So the limud gufa is a maisa, except instead of doing a maisa with your hands, the keli of learning Torah is your brain. You're using that gray matter, and you're using it to learn Torah. So I'm doing a maisa with my machshava. So mamela, it's shaykh to say the same thing, that the machshava, that the kavana of learning Torah is, I'm not getting to that madrega.
Two aspects of learning Torah is learning Torah to learn for Torah. Learning Torah what to do, to know what I'm supposed to do. So that's
gufa shaloi lishma.
So but that's the shema for the purpose of what I'm supposed to be doing with it.
So right. Okay, but that's not the lishma we're talking about. We're talking about oisik v'Torah lishma. Learning for learning's sake. Is it anything? And the answer is, says the Zohar, it is. You get a lot of schar. So don't knock the people. All he's saying is don't knock the people that are learning Torah be'iyun, yomim v'layla, and coming out with writing svarim. Yeah, don't knock it. Don't knock it, because the Zohar tells you it's a good thing. Hooray! You see from here, shafilu ha'adam asher iskay b'terasei b'yisparach shaloi lishma karoi. Ela b'shvil eze penia legarmei. Okay, you got it? Third base. Hooray! Shafilu ha'adam asher iskay b'terasei b'yisparach shaloi lishma karoi. Ela b'shvil eze penia legarmei. Raki meinoi lekintur, that's how it's written here. Lekintur chas v'shalom. You can't be lekanter. That it can't be. Or lekanter means I'm going to learn Torah so that I can snob out somebody else, or I can show somebody else that they're a nothing.
Contrary.
Kintur, contrary. It's more than contrary. In other words, it's critical. I'm learning, so it's one thing that I'm not learning lishma. It's another thing to learn lekintur. So that, he says, is not acceptable. So that's like b'chiyuv shalei lishma. It's not just like a right. A person says something is harei hektish, we say stamel lishma. So by Torah, you could say Stam Lishma. But if he says, Harei Hector Slava Dezara, so then it's not Stam Lishma, it's Slava Dezara. So the same thing is if a person is learning Torah, look into her, Chas v'shalom, Asher Olav Amru Rabbi Seinu, what happens if you learn Lekintur? Olav Amru Rabbi Seinu Zechreinim Levracha Noyach Leishetehapech Shel Yasai Al Panav. Very strong lesson. Better he wouldn't have been born.
It's a fine line if somebody's working harder because they want to get in the Rosh Yeshiva Shiur. I mean, that's a
Competition.
That's a very fine line.
Not to knock somebody else. So.
No, that they want that status. They want that, even if it's just the Shemekah.
I think that's all fine. That's all Shalei Lishma, which is good. We like Shalei Lishma. What we don't like is
On somebody else.
as soon as you're knocking somebody else, as soon as there's somebody else involved in this equation, and I want to put that person in their place, so that's Lekintur.
There's a Kardam Lachbar.
It's like a Kardam Lachbar in the sense of anytime you're using the Torah for a negative purpose, or a purpose, V'chein amru shenasu sam hamaves chas v'shalom.
Not for a purpose, for a negative purpose.
Negative person.
Purpose is okay.
Well, Kardam Lachbar boy is a stama purpose.
The Mishnah says don't do it, but it sounds like it's okay, right? It's a shelo lishma, shelo kaldu.
Is it okay you're using the Torah for a plea chol?
If it's lo lishma, so what's lo lishma?
It's not as bad as this, that's for sure. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shenasa loy sam hamaves chas v'shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu kavei loy sachar toiv. Shemagia loy oisher v'chaved. But a person, if it's not lekinter, he gets good schar. Shemagia loy oisher v'chaved v'shalva b'hai alma v'gam loy daininon loy bahu alma al oisa machshava. V'apniya shekivan ba. In olam haba, you're not done him on his non-positive thought. V'apniya shekivan ba. See, in the world of, like, let's say, Rav Dessler, so they tell you that Shalei Lishma, Ba Lishma, but the Shalei Lishma also has to be Lishma. In other words, like I have a backdrop of Lishma. What am I doing? I mean, of course, we're all here because we're Lishma. So, like, let's say, like, you're sitting and learning here right now, so that's 100% Lishma. Nobody's paying you, you're not getting any kavod, you're taking time, there's more fun things to do. That's completely lishma. Me, is that completely lishma? That's my job, my this, I don't have to enumerate. Is that completely lishma? But the background is lishma in the sense that if, it'd be more fun to play golf or to make money or to, there'd be a lot of things to do. So there could be a backdrop of lishma, and I'm certainly not lekintur. So there's a backdrop of lishma, but not the bechiyuv of lishma. So you're tzaddik gomer, tzaddik sheina gomer. That's what it works out to be. But again, I just want to point out that what he's saying is, when he's saying that if it's not lishma, it's okay, meaning your learning is not devotional. See, I don't know, like lahavdal elef havdalas, like if you go to some ashram in the Himalayas, so I don't think they have a concept of shalei lishma. Everything's lishma. I mean, like for them, everything is there's only one thing. It's only in Yiddishkeit.
They have no meisim. It's all machshava. It's all.
They want to disappear.
So then it has to be lishma.
Right. It's interesting. So you can argue that the Shalei Lishma, Ba Lishma, is actually Badafka. Like be Makadosh the Maisim around you, bring everything into the picture. Don't have a death wish or a disdain for Gashmias. Use it. It seems to me that that's all part of the thing. But Lahavdil, the early Hasidim, let's say, so it was more about the devotion apparently than it was about the limud. I believe that's changed, but I think it was more about the devotion of the day because they're coming at it from a completely different gisha. It's a completely different thing. It's not like you're more this, you're more that. Completely different idea. Like, am I doing this to be mistabik to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Or yes, that's my background to be mistabik to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously, but it's not important because, and even Musar was not learned in the early, I always ask people if they learned to Nefesh Hachaim and Volozhin. Did he give these Shiurim and Volozhin? No, probably not. It's a,
It could be
Only to a few guys.
It could be you don't need a background to traditional. Maybe the background is built in to the Jew. Let's say you have a guy, you know, he's a Jew, he believes in God, but I want you to learn to become a Tohen Rabbani. It's a good parnasa, and that's what I convinced him. That's what he's doing it for. Is that a problem?
I mean, the whole thing is built in. Lishma.
It's built in, maybe.
I'm a couple.
You seem to take for granted all the mitzvahs. It's Shul Shema, it's okay. Because I'm putting my tefillin, even if I have no Torah. And then he says, V'chein harmaz osek b'Torah, as if Torah, your osek b'Torah, if it's not Lishma, you still have the intellectual part that you went through.
But what I'm saying, Torah is a chiddush. V'chein b'Torah, that's a bigger chiddush.
Why?
Because Torah has no ma'isa.
But it does. You have the. Well, my tefillin has no mice. I mean, I put my tefillin on. If I have no lishma there, if I don't think about it, I don't remember that I did it. If I learned Torah for the wrong reasons, I still have the ideas in my head, the processes in my head.
Okay, so that's the Torah. It's that there's a mice in the machshava. That's the Torah. So I agree with you. And that's what I said. But it's a chiddush in the sense that the whole thing is going on in my head. Nobody could necessarily. I could be learning Torah when nobody even knows I'm learning Torah. As I'm not doing anything, but.
Do we have a concept of the mitzvah shlosh mag feed the sefer achra?
Yeah. So that in the Perakim he brings that's l'kintur. That's only l'kintur. The Perakim brings it in from not the Perakim, the Shari Tshuva, but not the Shari Tshuva, Shari Tshuva in Shulchan Aruch. So he brings in Hilchos Talmud Torah. He says that only if it's l'kintur is it. Otherwise, it's a steer to everything that we know.
This relates to, I mean, if I understood correctly in the Rambam, he says that everything is really an exercise until you get that one thing where you do it with 100%, all the kabbalas and everything else. Is that any application?
Look, Shmuel said this Rambam just now a minute ago. The Rambam in Perakim says that when there's a kid who's learning well, you give him a candy. And that's the right thing to do. That's chinuch. What are you giving him a candy? You're teaching him to learn shillelagh Shema. So the Rambam is Myrich. He says when he's a kid, you give him a candy. When he's 10 years old, you give him a bicycle. When he's 18, you give him a car. You know, when he's 21, he gets a good shidduch. When he's 25, he gets a good job. Whatever, you know, you can keep on going until you come to Lishma. Beseder. But you know, I'm thinking to myself that, you know, the place can say that if you give a kid a plastic lulav and esrog, and and you say this is for chinuch, good enough for chinuch, or for that matter, a puzzle lulav and esrog, or a lemon, or whatever, the place can say it's not chinuch. What are you being mechanech to do the wrong thing? What's the chinuch here? You can't give a kid the wrong thing to do and say this is chinuch. So he's going to get older. He's going to shake a plastic lulav and esrog. So if he's not holding an esrog and lulav, don't give him one. But to be mechanech wrong is the wrong thing. That's what Pais can say. That's what I said. The Shabbat brings such a thing. He can't do it. So why are we being mechanech kids to give them candies for learning well when the whole learning is wrong? Shillelagh Shema. The Torah says that it's not wrong. The Torah says, like the Nefesh Hachaim says, that the shillelagh Shema is Torah. That's pure Torah, 100% Torah. Now there's a madreg on top of it, which is called Zveikus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or however in Shardalad he's going to explain what Lishma means. But it's a, you know, you see the Maisa mitzvah and the Machshavas mitzvah is correct, and the purpose of this learning Torah is not a devotional. That's an extra piece on it. So, like in yeshivas, they talk about like fruma learning, that it's a chasarn, the frumkeit of it. But it's what does it mean that it's a chasarn? Because, you know, like you get together with your chavrusa, you know, so you have, let's say, a more Hasidically inclined chavrusa, and you're about to open the Gemara and you're about to learn. He says, I forgot to go to the mikveh. And then he runs off and he goes to the mikveh and he comes back 20 minutes later, half an hour later, and he sits down to learn. Okay, Lamar Gain, and all of a sudden, I didn't wash nagovas after I went to the mikveh. So he goes out and he washes nagovas. And he's sitting there Nikius. You have to, yeah. Nikius, and then it finally gets down and ready to learn, so okay, Seder's over. So, Shayach, such a Metzias, exaggerated, but Shayach, such a Metzias. No, but they also daven for an hour. So the thing is that whereas the guy who's not doing a religious act, he's learning the whole time. He's already up to Tosfos. So yesh lach, or in my opinion, yesh laharkiv, and learn from everybody, which I believe is what happened anyway. But what he's saying is certainly man A can't look down on person B. And it's one of the ironies while I'm talking about this is one of the ironies is the whole thing is that who would you say is more into Chitzonius, the Hasidim or the
Hungarians.
You're limiting it. But they are the first. I don't know. They're the first to say that that's an extremely important thing. It's an extremely important thing. They're not. It's not a libel on them. This is important. How you dress, how you look, your beard, your pace. That's how you look, right? No, which is somehow ironic, because the whole, according to Nefesh Hachaim, he was giving much more credit to the Hasidim, and he was saying that the ikar is with them this lishma level, which is totally pnimius. Totally pnimius, but if we don't have it, so don't yell at us. That's what he's saying. If we don't have the pnimius, don't yell at us. So my point being that the argument has changed over the generations. Okay, thank you. Tonight, I always say we're starting the Chabur in Masechta Megillah, the third parak of Megillah. Please come, please commit, and please bring a Gemara Megillah at 8:45.